right. Waiting on TV. Election results, they look good. All right, there we are. Good evening, everybody. Reconvene the City Council meeting for the City of Pacifica for June 9th. Call to order. It's a roll call.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Degree.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Irvin.
Present.
Mayor Neihardt.
Present. And the salute to the flag will be led by Councilmember Stone.
Please join me in saluting our flag. Eventually, as soon as we move this.
Pull it out from behind the curtain.
There we go. Ready? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we had closed session. Do we have closed session report? I can't hardly see you behind the
Technology.
closed session report.
I apologize. Closed session, council gave direction to staff on continuing our ongoing negotiations with the labor unions, and that's all we have to report.
That's not, the budget is much, much later, so that's got the budget up on it. Can we put it down? Because I can't see
Getting
you guys.
distracted.
Thank you. And we're going to try to be efficient here and move through a pretty hefty agenda. Okay, that brings us to the consent calendar. And if anyone wants to speak on any item on the consent calendar, this is your opportunity. Seeing no one, and I have no cards. Councilmember Stone.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar, but I will be abstaining from the minutes.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Okay. Please vote. And that passes 5-0, and I should make a comment that I handed a few minor corrections in one part to the city clerk, just on some stuff that I'd said in my report. Okay, with that, that brings us to our special presentations, which are pretty exciting, and the first one is the Terra Nova High School robotics team. I saw science down here. We need a mic for them. How about if you just use mine?
Oh, here's one. Here's one, Marianne.
Okay.
Or speak up really loud.
No, they can't be heard then on TV. Should have got you one in advance.
You could use the podium also.
I think you can just do this. Take it. It doesn't go any further than there, but...
Hi, my name is Andy.
My name's Ashley. We're from the Terra Nova Robotics Club. We'd like to thank the council for letting us come and tell you all about our after-school robotics program. As many of you may know, there's been a big push for STEM education. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Many people assume that there's 4 equal parts of these taught in our schools. However, this is the reality where we get hardly any time with technology and engineering. But this is, yeah.
There you go.
Sure. And this is where robot design comes in.
We compete in an organization called FIRST, which stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. This was founded by Dean Kamen, who also invented the Segway. Within FIRST, there's 4 different levels. There's Junior FIRST LEGO League for elementary schools, FIRST LEGO League for middle schools, and FIRST Tech Challenge and FIRST Robotics Competition for high schools. Terra Nova Robotics started out as a FIRST LEGO League or FLL team. This is an example of an FLL robot. In FLL, there's one team that competes on a 4x8 foot field, and in their match, they have 2.5 minutes of autonomous or pre-programmed instructions. There's a different game challenge every year. So in this particular game challenge, robots had to navigate the field using sensors in order to pick up rings and bring them back to base.
And now we compete in the League of FTC, or First Tech Challenge. Just on this computer. In FTC, 4 teams compete on a 12 by 12 foot field. 4 robots on the field at once. There's the Red and Blue Alliance. This is a picture from 2 years ago, that game challenge, where the robots had to pick rings up off of dispensers from the side of the field and then score it on a 3x3 pegboard in the middle. That's kind of like robotics tic-tac-toe.
In a match in FTC, as Ashley said, it begins with 30 seconds of autonomous or pre-programmed instructions. In this game challenge, there's an infrared beacon placed on one of the columns where the robot has to find the beacon and place the ring on one of those columns to get bonus points. After the autonomous period, drivers pick up their controllers and 2 minutes of teleop or driver-controlled period begins. In a teleop period, robots have to pick up their scoring elements and try to score them. And there's a lot of defense that goes on in matches, so alliances have to strategize beforehand with who's doing what. There's certain materials that we're allowed to use in our league. We can use any standardized piece from a kit, or use any raw materials that we can custom machine them to anything we need them to be.
And the programming language that we use in FTC is Robot C. It's a variant of the C language, but with a lot more functions for robots. We also use computer-aided design, or CAD, to design our robot. This allows us to visualize and confirm the design of our robot before having to spend money and time buying and machining pieces that wouldn't work. We also use CAD to show people mechanisms of the robot that would have been hidden otherwise.
As a documenter, we have to maintain the engineering notebook throughout the season. The engineering notebook keeps track of the engineering process. So when a new game challenge comes out every year, there's thousands of different ways to solve the same problem. So on the right, there's a robot that has a lift that can lift up rings to score on the pegs. And on the left, there's a robot with a giant arm that can actually reach over other robots to score rings. And so this is a CAD model of our robot that we built this last year. And this shows all of the parts that goes into a robot. And there's an 18-inch limit size restriction in our league, so robots have to fit within an 18-inch sizing cube before the tournament begins. Teams such as ours mentor other teams as well throughout the season. So here we're mentoring FLL teams at Ocean Shore. And we've also mentored teams in FTC, both in building their robot and in CAD.
We also do outreach events. This is us at the Pacifica School District Career Night at IBL, because we've learned that having kids drive our robots gets them a lot more excited about STEM than anything we could tell them. We also give corporate outreach. This is us at Google. And we also give peer education presentations which is where we share our experience with other teams. We also fundraise for our season. This last year, I guess, we went and were part of the green team at Fogfest. Hopefully we can be part of it again this year. And FIRST is a very worldwide organization. This was us in the 2010 European Championships in Istanbul. And then in 2011, we went to the World Championships. 2012, we were the robot design champions at Worlds. 2013, we were the robot design champions in Northern Nevada. We were also the Northern California State Champions in 2013, which advanced us to the World Championships. And then this year, we placed second at the Northern California Championships, which advanced us to the Western U.S. Championships, where we won robot design, which then advanced us to the World Championships this year.
And so that sums up our presentation. We'd love to take any questions that you have and possibly let you drive our robots.
Well, the questions come from us first. But thank you. Any council, do you have any questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
So great presentation. That was a lot of fun to watch. Just wondering, so you've been together now for 4 years, 3 years? And are you now still in high school, or have you graduated, or when did you start?
The two of us started 2 years ago, but we've had teammates that have graduated in past years and this year's. We just kind of keep on recruiting younger classmen and let the program live on.
So how many kids are involved? Students are involved?
Last year there were 16 students involved.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what teacher is it that helps run the program?
We don't have a teacher at Terra Nova. We have an adult volunteer.
Okay,
Ken
great.
Pfeiler.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, thank you. And are you guys interested, probably a basic question, but in going into engineering or?
Yeah, a couple of us are interested in engineering, and some of us just kind of think engineering is a hobby.
Uh-huh, great. Really fun. Thank you.
Okay. Any other council? Councilmember O'Neill?
I know I've been kind of like keeping an eye on these people for a couple years because my daughter was in when they went to Istanbul. She wasn't in the program, but her good friends were in Istanbul. So I was really impressed to think we had a team all the way from, Pacifica that went up to Istanbul for competition. I thought that was really kind of cool, just like the Pacifican that swam the English Channel a while back. And I just, just to remind everybody, they are always looking for donations to be able to go to Istanbul and other places. So I'm sure if they could just send it to Terra Nova High School, they would be happy to get those donations. And they have done an excellent job, and the volunteer is dedicated.
Are we doing comments?
Wonderful.
Comments, Sonia?
Yes. Go ahead.
I've actually seen them in action doing demonstrations, which was great at the art in the Oceana Art, and all ages came over, like bees to honey. And you did a fantastic PR job as well as an educational job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Stone.
This is so cool. I think I can't remember if it was Istanbul in 2010 or before that. We first learned about when you're doing a big fundraising push, because a costly trip, I'm sure, to Turkey. But so this is just an amazing thing. So it's great that you're interested also in having the program continue and recruiting the younger members, and hopefully continue to do that. It's something that, I have little kids, and I'd love them to be doing something like this, because when we were in school, there was nothing like this. This is really, really cool, and we're just really proud of you. I think we can speak for everyone that you're representing our city and our schools all over the world. It's really cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'll go last because I think you want to show us something, is what I have the feeling you're over there for. This is a little bit different than like probably one of your general presentations, because we don't do the audience back and forth. It's a council meeting. But we certainly would love to see it, and I am so impressed. I just am very excited for you, and I can't believe that somebody thinks engineering's a hobby. But everybody has a hobby, right? So what are you going to show us?
I mean, one thing.
Don't let the mayor drive the thing, though. If you care, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Len, you're
Be nice.
Henry's about the right age, and he was doing.
He'll probably do it
the kid
better
that
than
was
me,
his age
actually.
was
There you
doing
go.
really
Okay,
good.
you guys.
I would like to
let
remind
them show
anybody,
us.
if anybody has any old computers, they are always looking for parts for computers and stuff. If
Really?
you're donating old computers or have some around, give them a call.
All right, let's see what you got going on here.
This is the robot from 2 years ago with the rings where we have to pick them up from the dispenser.
Two at a time.
Yeah. We actually had a limitation. We can only pick up 2 rings at a time, or else it would be a penalty. So, yeah.
Okay. Good job.
Awesome.
Members would like to drive it quickly. If any of you would like to drive it quickly, I mean.
drive one, but I'm going to have to call a question here, just because we have kind of a heavy agenda tonight.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you for having
We're very
us.
proud of you. Psychology and education?
Yeah.
Okay.
Engineering is a hobby for me.
Okay, there we go. All right. Thanks so much. We're going to let them do their thing and kind of try to carry on here. The second presentation, we don't actually have a recipient tonight, but I just wanted you to know, because the individual that would receive this is, of course, out of town. But I wanted you to know that we did our usual proclamation for Amateur Radio Week, and the Coast Side Amateur Radio Club and its affiliate Amateur Radio Emergency Service and the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service have been and are prepared to provide emergency communications for the residents of the city of Pacifica. And I won't read this whole thing, but I will tell you that they very much have been part of our crisis drills, our disaster drills. They've been an essential part, and we are very, very lucky on the coast to have such a thorough club that does so much to support us. So I would encourage you that the Coastside Amateur Radio Club holds its demonstration in Pacifica on Sweeney Ridge at the San Francisco Bay Discovery Site. And so we do hereby proclaim the week of June 23rd to June 29th as Amateur Radio Week, and they will do that annual demonstration on Sweeney Ridge this year once again. So thank you to the club, to the amateur radio folks, and for all they do for our community and keeping us safe. Okay. And that brings us to our, there's too much going on up here. That brings us to our public hearings. And so our first public hearing is a consideration of an appeal of Planning Commission's adoption of a resolution of Planning Commission of the City of Pacifica certifying the proposed 2014-2019 capital improvement program and its consistency with the general plan, and adoption of a resolution entitled Resolution of the City of Pacifica denying an appeal by Hal Bonner on behalf of Peter Loeb and Stan Zevan, and upholding and reaffirming the Planning Commission's findings that propose the 2014-2019 capital improvement plan and general plan's consistency. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. My name is Raymond Donguines with the City of Pacifica Department of Public Works. Tonight I'm here with Lee Diaz of our Planning Department. Government Code Section 6510C requires that the Planning Commission review the city's capital improvement program and report whether the CIP is consistent with the city's adopted general plan. The Planning Commission's role is limited to reporting on the city's consistency with the CIP with the general plan. Their action neither constitutes an approval of the CIP nor the approval or disapproval of any particular project within the CIP. On May 5, 2014, the proposed 2014-2019 City of Pacifica Capital Improvement Program was presented to the Planning Commission. Most of the projects listed in the proposed CIP are carried over from prior years and were previously determined by the Planning Commission to be consistent with the general plan. There were 3 new projects that was added. The 2014-2013 CIP includes only 3 projects, and the projects carried over from the previous years. The Planning Commission, by a vote of 6-0, unanimously adopted the Planning Commission's resolution number 896, entitled "A Resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Pacifica certifying that the proposed 2014-2019 capital improvement program is consistent with the general plan." On May 11, 2014, Pacificans for Highway 1 Alternatives, Peter Loeb and Stan Zeven, through their counsel Hal Bonner, timely submitted an appeal of the Planning Commission resolution. The following are the 3 grounds asserted by the appellants for the appeal of the Planning Commission's condition of approval. 1, the proposed 2014-2019 CIP is not consistent with the Pacifica General Plan. 2, the Planning Commission failed to make adequate findings as part of its decision. And 3, the Planning Commission based its decision on inaccurate, misleading, and incomplete information. The city attorney will be more able to provide the city staff response to each of these grounds.
I'm going to turn to you first because the question in the staff report was about whether or not this could be heard as an appeal.
Okay.
Could you address that?
In consultation with our office, the initial question came up that because this is the Planning Commission's role in looking at the CIP is very limited. It is to review it for consistency with the general plan and provide a report to the legislative body, in this case the City Council. That comes straight from the government code. To us, that's an advisory position or advisory role only, and since it is coming to the council regardless, it's unclear that the decision of the Planning Commission or the report of the Planning Commission is an appealable item. That being said, out of an abundance of caution, there's no harm in taking it as an appeal and ruling separately on the Planning Commission's determination and then taking the consideration of the CIP up at the same meeting. So that was the thought that went into it. We ultimately decided to proceed with it, the appeal, but there is a question as to whether it's actually an appealable decision.
Well, you ask a question in the report. Do you want the council to address that question, whether or not we want to hear the appeal?
If the council wants to rule on that question, yes.
Okay. Any questions from council? Councilmember Stone, I think we have to, but.
Okay, so based on the staff report and the question or the comments by the city attorney, it seems like it's the city's belief that it's not an appealable item, but it's not worth the hassle. We should just review it and then deciding what the council chooses, then could also address the other item at the end. So if that's a precautionary measure, it seems prudent to take that course and that we should hear it.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment? Okay. Everybody else agree?
Agreeing to
Okay.
hear it, right?
Yes, agreed to hear it. Now, I just want to clarify, what we're appealing is an advisory measure on the CIP itself, the capital improvement plan.
Yes, what the Planning Commission's role in this process is to look at the projects that are listed on on the CIP and determine whether they are generally consistent with the programs or policies set forth in your general plan. On a basic level, both the CIP itself, Capital Improvement Plan, we're so used to using acronyms. So for the public, the Capital Improvement Program is a list of capital works projects that the city may or may not fund over the next 5 years, but the intent of a capital improvement program is to set a prioritization for those projects, so if funding becomes available, these are the projects that we would like to consider. It is a planning tool, although not a planning tool in the true sense, because you use it for financial planning. Like the general plan and the local coastal commission plan, the CIP is an overarching planning document. You are not looking at the merits of the project, and approval of the CIP is not a approval or a commitment to any particular project. It certainly does not comply with the CEQA requirements for any underlying project. All it is when that project comes forward, this is the priority we'd like to see them come forward in. That being said, the Planning Commission's role is to look at those projects, determine if there are policies or plans in the general plan that they can advance. The general plan document is a comprehensive planning document that reflects a range of competing interests. So there are internal inconsistencies sometimes within your general plan because there are different interests and policies depending on the elements you have. In making a determination of consistency, the Planning Commission is going to look to policies to determine if it's generally in harmony with the general plan, not looking for exact consistency, and the courts have found this. It is virtually impossible for any project that comes forward to be 100% consistent with your general plan. What it does is reflect the competing interests and a balancing act by, or a balance and a determination by the decision maker. Appellants contend that the Planning Commission's decision is flawed based on a single project, the Calera Parkway project, which has been included on the city's CIP. I'm going to look to staff, but I believe for 15 to 20 years.
Correct. At least the earliest that we found was 2004.
Okay. So at least for the last decade, it has been on there. There have been previous determinations, and we have not had any comprehensive change to our general plan over that time. What is typically the practice in many cities is projects that are carried over. You don't necessarily remake the findings, you carry them forward from prior years. But out of an abundance of caution, we'll go through those now. In making its determination, one of the second argument raised by the appellant is that you didn't make the proper findings under a case called Topanga Canyon. The issue there is the findings in Topanga apply to what are called adjudicative or quasi-judicial decisions. It's when the council has an application for a specific project in front of it, and you are applying a set of rules to that project and making a determination. So you've got your rules, you've got your findings, you have to, sorry, you've got your decision, you have to breach the gap or bridge the gap with findings to tell the court how you got there. In a legislative arena, which is what this decision is, it's a legislative policy level determination. It's not a legislation in the sense of a adoption of a rule, but it's a policy level determination. There, the finding is you have to point to substantial evidence in the record that a reasonable person could base a decision on. It doesn't mean it's a preponderance of the evidence or even 50-50, as long as there's substantial evidence to support the decision made by the decision maker and other reasonable minds could get there, you've satisfied the requirement. Here, as listed in your staff report, and I won't go through each of them, there are 5 to 6 policies that this particular project does arguably advance. These were projects that are, sorry, policies that were looked at the Planning Commission level. They were looked at actually in the draft environmental impact report that was prepared by Caltrans on this project, and they were commented on at that time by city staff, and they are sufficient to constitute substantial evidence on which you can base a determination or uphold the decision of the Planning Commission. Finally, there were some arguments raised by the appellants that the inaccurate information received by the Planning Commission somehow flaws their decision. It points to references in the general plan to a housing element adopted in 1987 and some other outdated policies and plans. One, those policies and plans have nothing to do actually with whether or not the Calera Parkway project is consistent. Two, it's the nature of these types of comprehensive documents when you have elements and provisions that have to be updated periodically that you sometimes miss references in the overall body of the document. It does not affect either the legality of the general plan itself or the decision the Planning Commission has rendered. And with that, I will turn it back over to staff.
Okay.
For the reasons stated, staff believes that there is no merit to any of the appellant's factual or legal claims. Moreover, staff believes that ample evidence exists in the record to support the Planning Commission's finding that the 2019 CIP, including the Calera project, is consistent with the general plan and local land use plan. Therefore, staff recommends that the City Council deny the appeal by the Pacificans for Highway 1 alternatives to sustain the Planning Commission's finding that the 2014-2019 City of Pacifica Capital Improvement Program is consistent with the existing general plan and local coastal land use plan, and expressly incorporate and remake the express findings of the consistent for those projects listed in the 2014-2019 CIP that are being carried over from prior years. And three, adopt the attached resolution denying the appeal and upholding and reaffirming the Planning Commission's findings that the proposed 2014-2019 CIP is consistent with the general plan.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to ask you I'm going to first ask council for questions of staff. I assume I'm running this like as if there was an appellate. I mean, we have an appellate, let the appellate have their time and then open the public hearing.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. Questions of staff of council. Councilmember Stone. I mean, questions of council of staff. God, I'm not tired now.
After all that, I had two questions, but I forgot the first, so hopefully that'll come back to me if somebody else has another question. But I think in these appeals always, it's really, I think, important to ask ourselves like what the real question is. And that was a very thorough explanation, but I got a little lost in that. And I heard staff's explanation talking about, is it consistent with the general plan and these things, but the thing that jumped out to me, and you touched on it, was that line about, was it reasonable that is basically, I almost feel like we're asking if the Planning Commission are reasonable people, because there's that weird sentence in there, and it says that, could a reasonable body or person come to this conclusion? Can you tell me where that factors into all this, and is that one of the questions that were being asked tonight?
What you have to show is that the Planning Commission, or in this case, the council who will remake the findings if you go forward, that the evidence in the record is substantial evidence to support your decision. The way the courts have defined that is based on the body of evidence in the record in front of you and the portion of that you relied on for your decision, that reasonable minds or a reasonable person could come to a similar conclusion looking at that evidence and weighing the evidence, that you could reach that conclusion there. It does not mean that the majority of the evidence supports your decision. It means that there is substantial evidence in the record on which you could base your decision.
Okay. It just seems, I don't know, a lot of the times in these appeals, like we're asking right or wrong or policy issues, but it just seems like this is a totally different thing tonight, but I don't know.
Again, because this is, it's a policy level decision, so it's a legislative matter in front of the body. Your decision making has to be based on substantial evidence. It can't be arbitrary or capricious, but if you have evidence you can point to in the record to support it, that is sufficient to satisfy your burden.
Okay. I had another question, but I can't remember.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to verify a couple things. So this has been in the general plan since 2004, is that correct?
Correct, at least.
And every year since 2004, the commissioners have approved it as part of the general plan?
No,
Or
it's part of our
CIP.
budgeting
as part of our,
process.
yeah, right,
CIP.
Correct.
as CIP, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Has any of the commissioners ever brought up concern that it isn't consistent with our general plan?
To my knowledge, there's been no concern been brought up by the commission in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Degree.
So, excuse me, some of the words, definitions of words, so in talking to you, it sounds like my interpretation of substantial was like earth-shaking, but your interpretation of substantial would be that the general plan covers a wide variety of topics, and so substantial evidence, or should I use the word evidence, but anyway, substantial information here would be that the CIP and the Planning Commission looked at things within the general plan that covered a whole bunch of categories, and that constitutes substantial. Am I correct in that?
Yes. I mean, in this arena, substantial evidence is a term of art used by the courts in looking at these decisions. You have to keep in mind the purpose of the general plan is that it is a global or overreaching policy document that includes competing interests. It sets forth policies and goals. Nothing is 100% consistent with the general plan, and the body who adopted it, in this case the City Council, is the body best positioned to balance those interests and make a determination based on the evidence and policies set forth in your document. Now, you couldn't introduce findings or policies that are not in the body, but you can point to policies in the document that projects are consistent with, and you can determine or weigh the competing interests to determine whether or not a project is roughly consistent.
But again, we're not saying specifically that this particular project is the best thing in the world and is fulfilling the parts of the general plan the way the general plan is written.
No, and once again, a good distinction to make. This is a policy level document. You're not looking at the merits or the specifics of the various projects on the CIP, because a lot of times we don't have project level details on a lot of these. These are long range projects that we're hoping to implement if we get sufficient funding. They may not be at a design level stage yet that we can go down to a project level. Again, approval of this CIP does not commit us to a particular project, does not fulfill your obligations under CEQA with respect to that project. A determination by the Planning Commission or the Council on Appeal that a project at this stage with the CIP is consistent with your general plan does not foreclose a finding later on at a design level that the project as designed is not consistent and needs alteration.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember O'Neill.
Just kind of as a follow-up with Karen's question, to your knowledge, has anybody ever appealed to the City Council before on this, on the Planning Commission's approval of the CIP?
Not that I know of. This is the first one that I know of that has been
Okay, so
appealed.
it's just been the regular business as usual, which is the next item on the agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay, then just kind of like to clarify is basically what this is we decided we want to have a car, and then the next thing is we decided this is the make of the car, Ford, Chevy, and we have not yet decided on what kind of car, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Actually, isn't the,
Simple.
just to continue that metaphor, isn't this, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but this is basically our wish list.
Your CIP essentially
Yeah.
is your wish list.
So we
if
have
you
our
have
car
funding.
on our wish list. We don't even really have a car. Just thought I'd mention that. Councilmember Stone.
No, thank you, and thank you for letting me speak again, because I did remember. That was what I was going to ask about. I think we're all on the same page about that with the CIP, and that you kept mentioning that it's not, it's just a policy document. It's not an actual plan to build these things or what have you. There's no design elements and things like that. So that the way I was thinking about it was I have my CIP plan at home. It's like, fix the gutters, paint the house, remodel the kitchen. Like there's all these things, but these design and other things haven't happened yet. It's just kind of a hopefully wish to-do list. So yeah, thank you.
And just one point, one other time, because the CIP does it even accurately reflect the funding? Because the money that's in here for some of these projects is,
The CIP is an approximate estimates of the projects.
well, we were a little off on the bridge. Just thought I'd mention that. And it's not the part that we're paying versus the part that we get funded by other monies? It's none of that?
Usually, we start the process early in the year, and so sometimes we don't get the accurate numbers when we start.
So it doesn't make any difference on our wish list? We're putting in numbers that are
Correct.
rough guess?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Degree.
Right, we mentioned wish list and hoping and things like that in the general plan, so I don't want to go after that right now, but I probably will be readdressing and questioning those things. Thank you. I don't want to do it now.
That's okay. I just have one last question. Inconsistency with anything on this list, and let me be clear, when I say a wish list, my wishes change a lot in any given year. But is this supposed to be, this item, somehow inconsistent in, what's substantial mean with the general plan? Because I have lots of pieces of it highlighted and outlined, and we're talking about something that we don't have a design of, and we don't have the pieces to compare to. So what's substantial?
At the planning level stage, what you're looking at is you have a general idea what a particular project entails, even if you don't know what it'll look like or what form it'll take. What you're looking for is what policies and goals do we have in our various elements of the general plan that this policy, that this program either advances or is consistent with. And to take an example of what we would deem an inconsistency, where if you have in your land use element, you designate particular uses for land in the city. If you had a piece of property that was designated, large piece of property designated for open space and recreation, and on your capital improvement project or capital improvement program for a given year, you proposed a mixed-use development with 1,000 living units and a significant portion of commercial space without the requisite ability to change the underlying land use and zoning,
Exactly.
that would be inconsistent with the land use portion of that. It may advance other policies of your general plan, but at that point, you could probably make a finding that at least in its current iteration, this is inconsistent with the general plan to a point that we would not want it on the CIP.
Okay. One last question before we go to the appellate, because that's where I want to go next. As you develop the capital improvement program, and since we've now referenced this as if it's a wish list somehow of the council, given that this is an item that this council, I don't even think anybody up here put on the list, how do these come together?
We generally contact all the department heads early and ask them to fill out the form and submit to us for inclusion in the program.
But each and every item in this program comes back to council for approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're all clear. So who's going to speak for the appellate? Hal?
And Madam Mayor, I would open the public hearing at this point, and we'll start with the appellant.
Before?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then I'll call the public hearing open. Usually the appellate gets a little bit additional time than 3
Yeah,
minutes.
that's-
Like
10.
10? Okay. Just wanted to know. Great. Mr. Bonner?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Okay, I'm trying to get a little more clarity on the process here. So the appellants get 10 minutes. Is there, sometimes there's a 3-minute rebuttal allowed? Is that
I have,
part of the deal here?
just so we're clear, whoever's speaking for the appellates right now, at the beginning of the public hearing, will get 10 minutes. If you want to split it up, you can, but after that, I will start calling the cards that I have, and I have additional people, some of whom I think are on this, including you have a card in here. So you get 10 minutes right now.
And no 3-minute rebuttal then?
A rebuttal to what?
Rebuttal to any comments raised by anyone else in the public hearing.
Okay, so you get to follow
yes.
up at the end?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And there is a 3-minute in our rules.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, so to complicate the process a little more, I'm sorry. I'm representing Pacificans for Highway 1 Alternatives, Peter Loeb and Stan Zeven. Peter would like to take part of this 10-minute segment. Is that all right?
Sure, 10 minutes.
Yes? Okay, thank you. You know, I've submitted a lot of documents here. I'm sure your counsel has read them. I don't have a lot to say beyond that, other than to say that I disagree with a lot of what he said, and there's no point in my going through that item by item and stating how I disagree. The main thing that we're talking about in our appeal is the Calera Parkway project, the elephant in the room. And you all, I think, have a somewhat general idea of what it is. You know, you're being very hypocritical here. Your counsel is telling you, and you're saying, this is on our wish list, and it hasn't been designed, and so we really don't know what it is, and so we're not responsible for anything about it. That's essentially the position you're taking. On the other hand, your general plan is a document that the courts say is a very important document to follow, a document that you need to be consistent with, a document that your programs need to be consistent with. And it's pretty clear to me that the Calera Parkway project is inconsistent with the general plan. The general plan says very specifically that the highway is to be altered and improved and the capacity not increased. It's very, very clear about this. This is not a judgment call. This is not a vague thing. It says no increase in capacity. And in contrast, that's exactly what the Calera Parkway project does. It increases the capacity of the highway. That's not a mystery. That's not a surprise. That's not a secret. That's in the final EIR for the project that I'm sure your city engineers are very familiar with. Mr. Ocampo is on the project development team. He's very familiar with the project. And I think if you would ask him, does the Calera Parkway project increase the capacity of Highway 1? He would answer yes. That is inconsistent with the general plan. It's not a matter of discretion. The other thing to say is that you may have the ability to exercise your legislative discretion in these matters. You may not. That's a thing for the courts to decide. But your Planning Commission is not exercising legislative judgment here. The Planning Commission is an administrative body. They make administrative decisions. You are asking them, and what the law requires of them is to make an administrative decision about whether the projects in the capital improvement program are consistent or inconsistent with the general plan. So their responsibility is a different one from yours, and your attorney is mixing them together, and that's just not correct. Anyway, there's a lot more I can say, and I expect there's no point in that this evening, so I'll turn this over to Peter and reserve my 3 minutes for later.
I'll try to be brief, and I'm really just going to repeat in my own words a lot of what Hal just said. I have no illusions about where this is going. This is not my first rodeo. But I feel a need to make my own statements about why we filed the appeal. And I also want to comment on the notion that the Calera Parkway project has been in the CIP since 2004. That may be true, but it wasn't until just recently that there's been a final EIR for that project, so it's very defined. And then to pick up Councilmember O'Neill's analogy, actually, the final EIR does say what the make, model, type of car is, what the accessories are, what the upholstery looks like, and everything else. It's all very defined in that final EIR. Anyway, what I did want to say was that if you look on the resolution that you have to adopt to deny this appeal, it has a sentence in it towards the end that says, "The improvements proposed by the project do not increase the capacity of the roadway." That's a false statement, plainly. It should be apparent to anyone. The purpose of the Calera Parkway project is to reduce traffic congestion, and it does that by adding lanes. And adding lanes will supposedly reduce congestion by increasing the capacity of that section of roadway to move more cars through it. The Calera Parkway project increases the capacity of the highway. Yet if you adopt this resolution denying this appeal, you are adopting a statement that says that the project does not increase the capacity of the roadway. That sentence is in there. It's doublethink. It's right out of George Orwell's 1984. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. This adding lanes does not increase capacity, Hello? Yeah, right. Anyway, the general plan says that improvements to the highway should not increase capacity, but you're going to adopt a resolution that says the Calera Parkway project is consistent with the general plan. That's more doublethink. And that's, politely said, that's baloney. Thank you.
Okay. I have a whole bunch of questions because of looking at where this is taken. So, what do I do now? Just call the cards? Leo Leon is next, and Peter, you've already spoken, so, I have the same people on cards, that's why I'm asking. It's a little puzzling. So I have Leo and Tom Clifford, and that's the only cards I have. In addition, we might have another one up here. So should I just hear them? Okay, then I have questions. All right.
William Leo Leon, Edgemore Avenue. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here tonight I presented documents today through the city clerk for you to consider and deliberate. The first one, these all speak to policies. The letter from the Coastal Commission to Lee Diaz, dated July 13, 2004, regarding a specific project on Highway 1. And the letter says, as confirmed by a California State Court of Appeal, both the relocation of environmentally sensitive habitat areas and the filling of wetlands for roadway expansion projects are prohibited under the California Coastal Act. Although the project traffic study acknowledges that Calera Parkway project is not fully funded at this time, the study nevertheless assumes that the highway expansions expansion is an inevitability. This assumption would appear to be invalid since the destruction of wetlands and environmentally sensitive habitat that result from the Calera project is prohibited under the Coastal Act. The next letter is from the Coastal Commission. This one's dated October 21st, 2011, to Yolanda Rivas, the branch chief of Caltrans, regarding the EIR for Calera Parkway widening. Specifically, we appreciate the effort Caltrans and the San Mateo County Transit Authority have put into early coordination with Commission staff, and the additional information that has been provided to us will be helpful in evaluation of the proposed project during the coastal development permit process. However, the DEIR falls short of providing all the information necessary to evaluate the project for its consistency to the city's Certified Local Coastal Program and the Coastal Act. In summary, the EIR does not provide all the necessary information to evaluate the project for consistency with the Coastal Act and the certified LCP. Moreover, given the standards of review described above, we strongly recommend that the project include a table identifying the Coastal Act policies and standards applicable to the project. I served on the Planning Commission for over 8 years. I sat on the CIP. I never saw any of these letters. Have you seen any of this information? Furthermore, the last time I voted on the CIP as a planning commissioner, I put it on the record. You have a copy of what I said. Basically, I said, there's no information for me, there's no value to add for the Planning Commission. I've asked every year for more information on the CIP so we can add value to what we're asking. If you want us to just rubber stamp, I'm willing to delegate it to staff. Don't even involve the Planning Commission for the level of attention that we are given as far as what we're evaluating. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Clifford, followed by Margaret Goodall.
Tom Clifford. Actually, my comments were on the CIP in general, and it really doesn't fit into what you're doing, so I'm going to go ahead and skip it. Thank you.
Okay, because you had 6 on there. All right. So, Margaret.
Good evening, council folks. I am here to support the appeal filed by Hal Bonner, representing page 1A. I truly believe that the Calera Parkway project is inconsistent with the general plan and the coastal land use plan. And so I ask you please to consider one tiny example. In your packet on pages 85 and 91, staff cites the general plan policies, or we're talking a lot about policies tonight, that are intended, now these policies are intended to improve safety. So I ask you, all of you are parents, many of you are parents, everyone, do you truly believe your child would be safer crossing 7 or 8 or 9 lines of traffic, either on foot or on a bicycle, than crossing 4 or 5? Or might you just simply decide that it was safer for that child to drive to school with you with all those wonderful new lanes for the cars? And those pedestrians will need the longer lights to cross the further distance, to gain access both to the quarry and to Rockaway. Both of those are considered to be important parts of the LCP and the general plan. Those longer lights will cause traffic to be waiting longer also. So I ask, how will more traffic lanes to be crossed improve pedestrian and bicycle access and increase safety as proposed in the general plan and the LCP? Those are policies. Safety is policy. What about old folks or people in wheelchairs who may need a longer time to cross the highway? If they get started running because the lights are changing, we've put them at risk. Are we discriminating against them? The Planning Commission should not have decided that the project is consistent with the general plan and the local coastal plan. You, council, can do better for us. Please, think outside the car. Thank you.
Okay. I have no other cards. When does the rebuttal happen?
It should happen now before you close the public hearing.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
So, I mean, normally, what I've seen in the past is that staff would rebut the appellant.
Staff can respond to issues that were raised or questions from the council once we close the public hearing, yes.
Good, because I have a ton of questions. The issue is about consistency with the general plan, and other than 2 words, I have not seen, and those are pulled out of a very long paragraph that describes a whole lot of stuff. And I've got all the pages marked in the general plan that are referred to right here, and I'm having trouble understanding the consistency. So I'd really like the appellates, no matter what you may think in terms of my prejudgment or not, to explain to me the inconsistency. That's my question. I'm putting it out there. But I want to make sure that we address that. For example, the plan says, care should be taken in widening the highway along Rockaway frontage to ensure that non-conforming lots and substandard uses are not left, that Caltrans should purchase entire parcels to be established the right-of-way and provide improved sight lines and parking on portions of the... I'm reading this whole thing in here, and it's quite extensive. It also talks about a road through the quarry, which we haven't developed. It goes on about a number of things related to the non-conforming lots. So the increased capacity, the part that I really was stunned by is the highway is now at capacity. This was written in 1980. During commuter peak hours, this congestion hampers emergency access. These are the things we've been saying. To resolve these important community issues, a local service road, when the quarry, and they go on to describe how the quarry should be developed to get that local service road. We haven't done that. So this is my confusion. How is it inconsistent? Because they describe the problem we're experiencing right now, which we still haven't solved.
If I may, Madam Mayor, I would suggest you hear from the applicant, and then we will
Okay.
will respond to questions from
Good.
council.
Great.
Sorry, I'm a little confused by the process here.
Me too.
Is this my 3-minute? I know. I get it. I get it. Is this my 3-minute rebuttal, and then the other council members will
Just
have
answer
other
the
comments,
question.
and then the staff will have comments, and then I will not be able to rebut that, or how's this going to work?
Rebuttal is only reserved during public comment. The council generally closes public comment before they start their deliberations, and they'll ask questions of staff, but there is no rebuttal to the council.
But I've asked a question of the appellant.
Just asking a
Yes,
question.
you can ask him
Okay.
a direction, and he will
Okay,
respond to
thank
that.
you.
Okay, all right. So, I still don't quite understand this, but anyway, so to your specific question, there's a lot of detail and a lot of specificity. I don't know if you read what I have written, but there was a complaint that we filed in Superior Court. There are about 30 separate paragraphs where I list the inconsistencies, and I see 2 minutes and 33 seconds here. I'm not really prepared to go through all those right here and now. What I would say is that is exactly what your planning commission should have done. That is exactly what you should be asking them to do, is to give you a detailed analysis comparing the general plan with the Calera Parkway project and giving you that information in a detailed and comprehensive way, rather than asking me for now 1 minute and 56 seconds to try and summarize 30 paragraphs in my complaint for you, which I am unable to do here. So maybe that will give you an idea of how the process really should have worked. Geez, there's so much to say and really so little time here. You mentioned that the General plan talks about a service road through the quarry. Yes, that is what the plan is. That's what the general plan says, is that the highway will not be increased in capacity and there will be frontage roads on either side. That's what the general plan says. Now, you may not like that. You may think, Caltrans may not like that, but that's what the general plan says. Okay? And you are obligated to follow the general plan, not be led around by Caltrans to do whatever they feel like. The general plan of Pacifica and the local coastal program local coastal land use plan are the Bible for the development of this city. Caltrans does not get to rewrite that themselves. That is your job. And if you want to rewrite the general plan, then go ahead. And that's apparently what you're considering doing, but you have not rewritten the general plan yet. You have not rewritten the local coastal land use plan yet, and you have not had it had it discussed and considered and approved by the Coastal Commission. So we have the 1980 general plan is what governs. There's, my time's up.
Okay, thank you. So I have no more cards on this. So I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Councilmember Stone? No?
Nope.
Okay. Councilmember Degree?
Can I go back to questions on, so regarding the fact that council has discretionary powers, in today's circumstances, I'm assuming there are some discretionary powers. Could we take up the fact that, okay, no, there hasn't been any appeals in the past, but that doesn't mean that that's therefore a record of, yay, that's good, that in this instance, and maybe there's others, that an appeal is a good thing to bring attention and bring something up to council's discretion. I still get where you're saying, pretty much from talking to you, that this is all somewhat superficial, only in the sense that it's not like when my interpretation of significant or evidence and all those things is extreme, like you have to have data for data and absolute proof. Doesn't sound like that's what we're talking about. So because of that, does it allow us to step up and say, we could step forward and say there's a higher issue here, let's take this particular item out of the CIP and let us go forward with the CIP without it and bring this to further discussion? Because in another way, what I'm hearing is that members of the public would like us to hurry up and address this congestion management issue and argue the point. Now, I went over, without looking at too many other documents, I went over the general plan, the entire thing, and I did see what the mayor mentioned, and I did see what Mr. Bonner did, and I saw several other things which in the overall picture of it all, and what I read, the general plan is more inclined to say, and I could quote a couple of them, which I will, just so you see where I'm going. Pacificans recognize the special qualities of their coastal location with its scenic natural features and rather unique development patterns. The greatest influence, the emphasis is given to those factors which will have the greatest influence on the image. Pacifica has unique physical setting in the Bay Area. These scenic qualities have significant aesthetic and potential economic value to the city. And it goes on quite a bit throughout the general plan, kind of focusing in on the uniqueness of the city. And within it all, you can see that there's grave concern that the widening would destroy that image, that character, and I believe I know those are the words of image. I think they also, I'm sure they use the word character. That would destroy all that emphasis of the general plan, and that the general plan alludes to the local coastal plan and the Coastal Act. So from that point of view, is there discretionary powers upon us tonight to separate those and put on an agenda to actually move forward? And I know that the city manager has already pretty much planned this in the summer, which was we're here. Is that a possibility? And I did read, so when we're talking about the findings, I think I read the minutes of the 2011 of the Planning Commission. I was rather appalled, actually, because specific things were asked and there were no real specific answers. And they couldn't have been during that particular meeting. So I'm maybe secondarily appalled, again, that that wasn't followed up. To tighten it up, it's like, what are the specifics here? What are we talking about? The Planning Commission was asking for more specifics and data on which to determine the CIP's accuracy and consistency with the general plan. So I also read the letters regarding the Highway 1 project, Calera Creek project, which is in the CIP. I read the letters from the Coastal Commission, several of them, one to Mr. Hurley, one to Ms. Rivas, and they are quietly specific about things that DEIR and FEIR are to complete. And my question has always been, where are we in the process of that? And they were saying, the Local Coastal Act was saying it is in the jurisdiction of the city to determine whether or not you want to do a joint analysis of the Calera Creek project, that it is the project of Caltrans, but it is the city's prerogative to say whether you do two together combined with the local coastal plan determination of correctness. So we have that possibility as well. So I had, as I mentioned to you, I think it's page 65, some of the things in the response of why this is legal to do seemed a bit beyond, and I think it was page 65, maybe you could help me with that, where you list the categories.
85.
Is it page 85? Do you have that? Page 85, if you look at the very first one, I think it was something about circulation. There must be a faster way of using these things. The first sentence was A-okay to me, but then the second sentence was like making a value judgment. And so what we just said in the beginning was that this is not to be making a value judgment, and yes, that was one of the reasons given. So I'm very torn by that as well. That's another thing. If I can find, anybody find 85?
85 in the general plan?
No, 85 in the report from the staff and attorney. Sorry, there must be a quicker, some guru on this thing could figure this out. I'm on 118.
Page 85 of
Could you just read the first one? Do you have it?
The agenda packet?
Have it? Mr. Pittman, do you have it in front of you?
Yes.
Can you just read that one?
Which?
It's the top one.
Circulation element policy number 4, provide access which is safe and consistent with the level of development. The project advances this policy by proposing access and safety improvements to accommodate existing and project traffic volumes on Highway 1.
Just the first one. So what I was saying is, it seems to me that the first part, the generality of that, the title is okay, and even the first sentence, but then it seemed to me the second sentences go into too much specifics, and that's concerning.
Well, the first part is the actual policy from your general plan.
Right.
You have to show some analysis of why you think the project advances that particular project. This is staff level assessment looking at that policy and the proposed or the intent of the project. Again, at this level with the CIP and your determination of consistency, you're still not looking at the merits or the design of the project.
Right.
And some of the comments.
Right, and that's what I was saying. The second sentence seems to do exactly that, however. So anyway, I pretty much said enough for now, so you know where I'm going on now with the discretionary opportunities here, separating this one out of the CIP, that sort of thing.
Did you answer that?
This is a legislative level policy decision, so clearly the council has discretion on how to proceed with it. This is different than a project level where you have some discretion on applying the rules, but you have to be careful because of the rights of a project applicant. Here, the applicant is the city. So if you determine this is not appropriate or is not consistent with the general plan, you could continue this for additional information if you want to make your determination and move forward with the CIP later this evening by removing this project from it and going forward with
You could do
without
that.
yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stone.
Okay. So I know in these appeals, we talk about them sometime. I was just at one in San Francisco for the golf course, and it was about a pump station and all these other things. But then, of course, the comments were about the greater policy decision, which was the project, right? And that happens very regularly in these appeals, and a lot of times the support or the opposition to the appeal, not from the appellant, I know you have your own motives, but is because of the project as a greater, the greater policy decision. So tonight, we're just talking about whether we should uphold or deny the appeal, and that's what we should really focus on. And so I guess just my comments are simply that I don't really see any evidence that shows that we should do anything except for deny the appeal. I think staff did a good job in presenting the information, and I appreciate that. And I just something to the appellant. I would hope that you wouldn't think that the decision would be prejudged, and that you would come in and make a solid presentation and really make a convincing presentation that this is worthwhile. And I have a lot more comments and feelings about this project in general and a lot of what's going on, but that's not what we're talking about today, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as the city manager has laid out when and if someday there is actually a document for us to review that is not being challenged in court, that is, and actually gives us the time to be able to have a community discussion on that. So I look forward to that day. And I'll make a motion when the time's ready, but I'm sure council members want to make some comments.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I just had a question in regards to the comment that was made that because we have a final EIR on this project, the details are known. Do we have to think about this differently within the plan, the CIP, because of the fact that we have a final EIR?
Not necessarily, because again, the CIP is a planning level document. The example I usually give is your general plan, your CIP, those type of documents, you're taking the 40,000 foot look. You're not down at project level. You are looking at the overall plan. Does it advance any of your policies? Is it completely inconsistent with your general plan? Could you see a scenario in which it is? To date, the council has not had an opportunity to weigh in on the merits or the actual design of the project. But as you are all aware, ordinarily the state is exempt from local regulation entirely. They could exempt themselves from the general plan. We are a coastal community. They are subject to our coastal, our local coastal plan, and they have to apply for a local coastal development permit from you. At that point, you will be able to address the design or other issues related to the project. To date, we have not been involved in that. It has been Caltrans' project. I do believe staff has submitted comments on the environmental documentation, but they're similar to the comments that were raised by one of the commenters that addressed the impacts to sensitive biological resources. Just because you've got impacts doesn't mean you can't redesign a project to make it do what you need. And that is something you do at the project level. Again, approving a CIP, it's on your wish list. You're not approving the project. You're not committing to the project. You're keeping yourself open to options.
I just wanted to ask two questions. I mean, first of all, the largest EIR that I've been involved with was when we moved from this building and went to Calera Creek. And the EIR for that very clearly stated that the number one choice was the back of Fairway Park, not where we ended up building the plant. So because we have a draft EIR at this point, could be ratified, could be not, who knows? Who knows? It's in court. In the meantime, even if it was, it doesn't mean that we have a design or a plan. I mean, you heard upholstery and all that. I don't see that. I haven't seen a design at this point in time. I've seen lots of concept drawings, but I haven't seen that design. Is that correct?
That is correct. And moving forward, when they actually apply for the coastal development permit, you will have plans, and at that point, our code is pretty clear. Unless you can make a finding that the project as designed in front of you is consistent with the local coastal plan and the general plan, you can't issue the permit. That's appealable to the Coastal Commission, but the decision and the discretion is vested with the city.
Now, what I want to go back to, and this is what I would have liked to heard a lot more discussion of, is really the actual general plan that doesn't get addressed in any of the papers that have been turned in. And that is the issue of how the document, the general plan, goes on to describe that care has to be taken in widening the highway along Rockaway Beach frontage road to ensure that non-conforming lots and substandard uses are not left. That certainly makes a lot of sense to me. The Caltrans should purchase entire parcels to establish right-of-way and provide improved sight lines, parking on portions of the frontage lots, enhanced safety and operation of the roadway, landscaping along the highways should be negotiated between Caltrans and the city. I mean, this goes on very extensively to talk about solving this problem in a variety of ways. I can see things that need to come up as we go forward. But having this list on here, does that violate any of that?
No, you're not committing to, again, if you keep it on the CIP and you find the CIP overall consistent with the general plan, including the projects on it, it doesn't commit you to a particular course of action with any given project. And again, some of the policies that you have raised in the general plan, valid concerns, not necessarily couched in concrete terms that require you to go a particular way, and not necessarily consistent with some of the other policies both you and some of the commentators have raised. So at some point, we're going to have to balance and approach this. The section you pointed to clearly shows that at some point we contemplated that Caltrans would want to widen the highway, and we were concerned with the impact along that area, so you tried to put in provisions that would prevent that.
About that impact. Yeah. Okay. Just as a point of fact, on this same page, interestingly enough, it's talking about the marina in Rockaway Beach as well. It's just kind of interesting how time goes on. Okay. What's the wishes of the council?
I don't see any other lights, so I'll just make a motion here.
Are we ready for that?
No, I was just going to second the motion.
Okay.
I'll move that the City Council find the 2014-2019 City of Pacifica Capital Improvement Program to be consistent with the existing general plan and deny the May 11, 2014 appeal by Pacificans for Highway 1 Alternatives, Peter Loeb and Stan Zeven, through its counsel, Hal Bonner.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Degree.
Well, since you did say, Mr. Pittman, that we had discretionary powers, is that correct? To take it out of the CIP today?
Yes, I mean, that's within the
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yes, it's a legislative act that is within the discussion of the council on whether to proceed with it as is or change the CIP.
And in doing that, what would that say about the appeal? I work in special ed, and you get to a point where...
It doesn't necessarily say anything about the appeal unless you're making a final decision on the appeal itself. You would have to address whether to proceed or continue the appeal and ask for additional information with respect to the Calera Parkway project, if that's what you chose. Was there a concern still or no? Okay. And you could remove it from the CIP, and then pending whatever you found there, you could either add it back to the CIP or can permanently remove it from the CIP. So that is an option with council.
Okay. All right, based on that discretionary power, and as I mentioned before, the way it is written up gives the indication that decisions are already made, I'm going to vote against it.
Can I ask a question? What decisions are already made?
The way it's written up in here, some of the statements were beyond general and made it sound like the Calera Creek project was
specific and ready to go as acceptable. That's what I'm saying. And I went through the entire,
Was that your intention in those writings?
I'm sure it was not.
I'm sorry,
well, I don't
I was trying to answer a question for the city clerk. We have an issue with the motion, but I will address that in a minute. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Okay.
Oh, I had said that the way it was written as reasonable to have it not appealable or not be appealed was, as I think I mentioned to you before, that some of the statements, if you were just generic, saying it covers categories within a general plan, that was more livable for me, but the way it's written up, it goes into more specifics, as it would mitigate this, or it would do that, which I think is too much. That's my opinion.
That's fine.
Well, that does go to your obligation or your burden with respect to making findings. You do have to show some connection between the policies you think the project is
Right,
consistent
no, I
with
agree
and
with
how the
that.
project
I understood
advances.
that, I just felt it went too far.
And if we may, Madam Mayor, the
Yes.
maker of the motion also needs to indicate as part of that you will adopt the resolution that's in the packet.
Okay, the resolution next in order, is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you like me to read the whole thing again and add that, or would you like me to amend it to also include? Okay, Madam Mayor, I'll amend my motion to also include the resolution next in order.
And is that okay with the second?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I am, just before we vote, looking to simply figure out whether or not having something in the CIP was inconsistent with the general plan, and I just haven't heard it yet. There are two words that keep coming up, but past that, it goes on to describe a whole lot about widening and changing and all of those things. So I'm at a loss, and I wish that the appellate had been a whole lot clearer about that. I could have done a better job with it. But as it is, any other comments? Because that's all we've got to vote on. All right, then, please vote.
Wait, yeah.
And that passes 4-1. Okay, so that brings us to item number 7. And in all of this paper, I have lost my agenda.
This is the capital improving the...
This is just the approval of the capital improvement plan. There we go. So we're on to a public hearing about the resolution for the City of Pacifica, City Council of the City of Pacifica adopting the City of Pacifica 2014-2019 Capital Improvement Program. Staff report.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor and City Council member. Again, my name is Raymond Donguinness with the Department of Public Works. The Capital Improvement Program is an important tool designed to help the city plan and budget for use of development fees and other funds. The proposed CIP enumerates recently completed, ongoing, and anticipated public capital improvements and facilities necessitated by new development in the city. The CIP indicates the approximate location, size, proposed project start and completion dates, estimate project funding sources, and other miscellaneous project information. On May 5, the Planning Commission reviewed the CIP and certified that it was consistent with the general plan and adopted a resolution certifying that the proposed 2014-2019 capital improvement program is consistent with the general plan. Again, we just heard on May 11, 2014, Pacificans for Highway 1 Alternative, through its counsel, Hal Bonner submitted an appeal of the Planning Commission certifying the capital improvement plan to be consistent with the general plan. On May 27, 2014, Council continued this item to consider the appeal and to first rule on the appeal. Now that the appeal has been heard, staff recommends that the City Council adopt the resolution adopting the City of Pacifica 2014-2019 Capital Improvement Program.
Okay. Questions of staff? Councilmember Stone.
Can I ask staff, as part of our goal study session, at least maybe, I can't remember if it was the last one or the one before that, we reviewed the CIP, kind of a 10,000-foot level as the CIP is. I don't remember who the city manager was at the, so you might not be able to comment, but I do remember us reviewing this as a body. Is this the same document that we reviewed that time? Are you able to answer that?
Lori Tinfo is city manager. I do believe it was the former city manager. I don't believe our goal-setting session included this. Perhaps Ray could actually respond to that, or Public Works Director Van Ocampo might remember.
When I don't remember.
I'm just wondering if we had seen it since then, because that was the last time we really talked about this as a body. So, and everyone had their comments, which are pretty at that point mild. And anyway.
Yeah. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. In response to Councilmember Stone's question, yes, this is the same document that you looked into, but like what you said, it's at a very high level.
Yeah, which it is. Okay, just wanted to try to get a frame of reference. Thank you.
Just one follow-up question, and don't go away. City Manager, Lori, you had mentioned having a priorities in this document, because some of these things have sat here for quite a while, pretty much through my entire time up here. I've never seen us have the funding, never seen us move forward. So I'm wondering if this document would really help the public if we had more of a priority focus.
I'm sure it would be more helpful for the public and for staff and council if we gave it some attention and did assign some priorities.
Okay.
And so with your direction, I'd be happy to work with Public Works and come back at a future meeting with that information for you.
I would love that. Hopefully that makes sense to people. Councilmember O'Neill.
Kind of responding to what you were just saying is, yeah, I can understand some of those things are kind of like hopeless at this point that we will be funding them in my lifetime. But I also would like to encourage, at least in the school district, when we did our strategic plan, every year we renewed it, we reviewed it, and if it was not in there, it's forgotten. Okay, but we had an explanation, so I would really encourage that maybe if you want to establish priority 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, whatever, but I would hate to see any of the projects deleted and then just kind of gone to the dustbin of history, okay? So, I mean, that's kind of my thoughts.
Well, that's kind of, just to clarify, that's exactly what I meant, so I appreciate that. But it would be nice, because this is just all kind of one big, long thing. All right. Mayor Pro Tem.
And along that same line, one of the things that I thought would be nice to see when we get the booklet, with the many, many different projects in there, is funding sources for those projects. If we could see that, at least in the book that I had, unless I'm mistaken.
I believe the sheets may include funding. Staff's looking going to direct your attention.
Many are blank, and I just...
Well, Palmetto's inaccurate, for example.
Thank you.
I was looking at
just a thought.
Sorry.
The funds that have been designated, the projects that have designated funds are filled in, and those that there's no funds, that means that the funds has not been found or has not been designated.
Okay.
Or has not been received?
Or not identified.
Yeah, I think unfortunately there are so many projects that are on the to-do list, whether they're you know, an on-ramp at Milagro or other things like that, you know, they're just not in the stratosphere of where the money actually is, so they're not there. So it looks consistent like there's nothing there, but that's unfortunately just that there's not any identified source, because some of them do, fewer and far between, have an identified source.
Okay, any other questions? Councilmember Degree.
This is a big project, so in the scheme of things, how are you going to do this? I mean, how soon do we expect it done? How much staff is available?
What?
To prioritize, isn't that what you just asked?
To prioritize the CIP?
Isn't that what you just recommended?
Yes, yes. I wasn't sure I was tracking which project you were talking about. I would want to work with staff to determine when we could schedule this and then how we would go about it. But I can come back to you with a work program that would explain that and let you know what kind of staff resources we think it will take and when we could get it on the calendar for you all.
Okay. Okay, I have 4 cards. Tom Clifford should open this to open the public hearing. I have 4 cards on this, and that is Tom Clifford, Peter Loeb, Hal Bonner, and Margaret Goodall.
Now I'm here when I should be. My question, comment is that the pedestrian overpass, which I brought before you at another meeting, I believe it should have been part of this CIP for years. It should have been noted that we needed to do the work and move forward. There were years and years and years as a planning commissioner where I would look at the CIP and we were talking about replacing linoleums in the fire department. And not that I didn't think they needed to be replaced, but I think that maybe we needed to pull some put this pedestrian overpass into this report so that it was wasn't forgotten. It kept getting forgotten. It didn't get the maintenance it needed. And if it gets into the report, it should be one of our priorities to get it taken care of. Thank you.
And Peter Loeb?
I want to, well, first I want to correct the record. In the previous item, the mayor referred to a draft EIR. I want to make it clear that we have a final EIR, not a draft, and that's been certified by Caltrans, and that can't be changed unless, except by court order, requiring Caltrans to go back and redo it. Anyhow, right now, that document stands. I want to respond and say as specifically as I can, the general plan calls for a frontage road and not increasing the capacity of the highway. It says a lot of other things. That's true, including a marina, but it's very clear about those 2 things, and I don't know if any of the council members were here or remember, in the late 80s, we went through, I was on the council then, we went through a whole process to define a frontage road system and improvements to those intersections. You do remember, some of you do, and we ended up with something called the 1E modified alternative, but it was never implemented. My point in saying that is that we went through an enormous public process to try to get to something that was intended to be consistent with the general plan. I say now that the final EIR clearly defines what the Calera Parkway project is. If you look at it, it's pretty specific down to, this many feet of a retaining wall here, and, everything is in there. And it increases capacity by adding lanes, and it does not implement a frontage road. If you approve the resolution that you have for this item, you will be taking an action that asserts that the Calera Parkway project is consistent with the general plan. You'll be taking an action that says that. What can I say? Thank you.
I'll look at the
Yes, Hal Bonner.
Yeah, Hal Bonner, representing Pacificans for Highway 1 Alternatives, Peter Loeb, and Stan Sieben. Well, I think, I don't know what else much I can say. You know, I just want to emphasize that it's obvious to you that you're making sort of a different decision here than you were on the appeal. And I will remind you that as a city council, besides what the Planning Commission has said, and besides the CIP, and besides all this other stuff, you have an obligation to do things that are consistent with your general plan and not do things like public works projects that are inconsistent with your general plan. The courts require that, and I'm sure if you ask your city attorney, he will tell you that the general plan is, by some courts, considered the constitution for development in a city. It's a very important document, and cities are required to follow that. And as Peter just explained, your capital improvement program and your authorizing or adopting of that is inconsistent. You may not do that. Furthermore, one of the reasons, and I don't think that's been discussed tonight, for having an approved capital improvement program is for your mitigation fees. And I don't have time to really get into that. I'm sorry maybe your city attorney has explained this to you. But if you jeopardize your mitigation fees by having an illegal capital improvement program that puts the burden, moves the burden from developers to pay fees to the individual taxpayers to pay the fees. And that's something that I'm sure the individual taxpayers in Pacifica will not be or would not be happy with.
Margaret Goodall, and then Leo Leon.
Okay, Margaret Goodale, 37-year resident at this point, and Peter and Hal have stated things very clearly to you about the inconsistency. I would simply ask that you listen to them. I want my town to be beautiful. I want it to keep the sense that it's my town, and it isn't turned into someplace like Daly City, where people are just going to whiz through and not watch us, not even see us. Thank you.
And Leo Leon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to reiterate, I don't know how much clearer it can be. We have 2 letters from the Coastal Commission. They're the permitting authority for the coastal zone in Pacifica. They're telling you that the destruction of wetlands and this environmentally sensitive habitat will result from the Calera project is prohibited under the Coastal Act. I don't know how much clearer language can get. Prohibited. The second letter, the DEIR falls short of providing all the information necessary to evaluate the project for consistency with the city's certified local coastal program and the Coastal Act. So if the permitting agency can't determine the consistency and conformance to the Coastal Act and the LCP, how can anybody else in this room make that determination? That's the permitting agency. You can either, that's why I always said, we're doing this whole process backwards. We should have done the CDP process up front. Why are we going through a design phase, and then after all of the money, $4 million, we're going to ask for a design, and then we're going to ask for a CDP, and then we might find out that, oh, wait a minute, this is not what we really want after all. All the time, money, effort that we've wasted by not doing what our own city ordinances compel us to do. I'm really upset about the waste of time and energy. We all love Pacifica, we all want to do the right thing, but we're not doing it in the right order. I'm telling you right now. It's going to come out, it's going to come back. This will not stand. Where we should be putting some effort, however, on another subject is, on the CIP, is we should have the Planning Commission working on identifying a project in Rockaway Beach. We've got the lowest ridiculous in-lieu parking fees anywhere. Because the project we'd identified goes back to 1978 or 1979. We haven't done anything to identify what our fees should, what they should be. So every project that comes up in Rockaway, guess what? More parking exceptions. Count them up. I bet you there's 200 or more in total. So you want to get money, you want to improve an area, let's put some effort where it needs to go and not waste our time frivolously arguing back and forth on this. Thank you.
Okay, that's the last card. I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is kind of interesting, 'cause usually the CIP thing is such a vanilla item, and we never have any controversy on it. But I understand that there's a lot of interest in the Clara Creek project. Makes total sense. It's a big project, and I know that most of the people that commented on this are commenting about that project in particular. And like I said before in the prior item, we will get to addressing that project, and hopefully, I guess there can't be any more lawsuits, but if this lawsuit is resolved, and we can actually have a public process and talk about it, and that's looking forward to that. So, as far as the CIP goes for tonight, it's pretty standard, and I'm happy to make a motion when the time comes. About amending it, to Councilmember Degree's point in the last item, we have gone over this multiple times as a group, and also this project's been percolating forever. I mean, since the 80s, or maybe even before, I don't know. But going back, this is always being looked at. And I remember 2010 when I was running for city council, I'm a little embarrassed to say, I didn't even know about the project when I started running. But I learned very quickly and started reading about the draft. So this project isn't why any of us are up here. I don't think anyone ran yay, we're going to do this or that, or not do it, either one. But the way I look at it is, this is going on for a long, long time. A lot of people moved it forward. A lot of councils moved it forward, especially the previous council. And it's so close to the end of actually having a public discussion about it, because the work is done, and now it's just held up in court. And maybe the court, the lawsuit is asking for the EIR to be thrown out, basically. That's just paraphrasing, and be redone. So that's a possibility. If they're victorious, it's possible it gets thrown out, and there's a new EIR, or it's possible it's amended. So I feel like we're in the same place it was when I was running for city council in 2010, which was, when we get all the information, we'll have a public discussion and come to a decision point. But for me, I think at this point, just to completely derail the process is not responsible. The city's gone through a lot of work in various, over decades, to just pull the plug on it now, just because there's a group, there's people that don't want the project. I totally respect that. completely respect that. But, you know, we all have to be objective and hear all the information and make a decision. But I'm just looking forward to having a community discussion with all the actual information, and we can move forward. But, so to Councilmember DeGree's point on the last item, I don't think it would be responsible to pull this out of the CIP now, when, you know, we've been telling the community for years that we're going to have this discussion. So that's my 2 cents, and I'm happy to make a motion when the time comes.
Councilmember DeGree.
Yeah, I am the old one around here. I have been here the longest, and we have this CIP every year, and I do question it the same way every year. And I think there is something different today, is that there was an appeal, and that makes things different. And taking it out of the CIP to separate it did not scrap the project at all, was more like an intent to hurry up and deal with it and determine things one way or another and get going. So I think prioritizing is a good idea, mainly because it's going to force discussion on everything. However, because I just voted against having the Calera Creek one in the CIP, I guess my vote's going to be no for this, but I certainly disagree with that notion.
Can I ask another question? Because I've heard so many things brought up tonight that have really not much to do with the question in front of us, so I just want to be clear about that. The letters, particularly from about the local coastal plan, that none of them reference the general plan in any way, shape, or form. The local coastal plan and the coastal development permit is a process within this, correct?
That is correct. And Caltrans has to submit to the local process. They will submit an application to you. You'll look at it. The other thing that should be pointed out with both those letters is they date from 2004 and 2000. They might have both been 2004. Presumably, the Coastal Commission commented on Caltrans's final EIR. It is likely that those issues have either been addressed or the Coastal Commission would have objected to the final EIR itself. And two other things that came up, if you don't mind. There was a comment that this was a final action from the City Council. Again, as we pointed out earlier, this is a planning level document. A CIP is a collection and evaluation of resources leading to actions which have not yet been approved, funded, or adopted. So you are not looking at the merits of any of these projects. You will still have to look at the merits of these projects. This is a planning tool that we use for financial funding.
So to that point, pulling it out when it's clearly in something that we're going to have to be talking about, need to be talking about, need to be having public meetings about, et cetera, I mean, does that make sense?
Unless the unless the council is intending on tabling it for the near future, and again, because you're not the lead agency, you cannot control when Caltrans elects to go forward and submit the CDP application. The only issue it would probably hinder would be our funding of the portion that goes through Pacifica, assuming we want to go after grant funding for it.
And last question from me, can you address the statement about mitigation fees if the general plan was found inconsistent to something that a planning level document can't do?
Again, we're using this for the allocation. If we're misapplying fees, that could cause problems, but our mitigation fees are set by a study that is done regularly, that is updated regularly. We ensure that they are being appropriately assessed and appropriately applied, and those are audited when we do the revised study each time.
And that study is consistent with the general plan?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Councilmember DeGree.
Two things. I'm going to just throw them out. You can answer them. I don't recall any discussion of tabling the Calera Creek Parkway rather than hurrying up discussion that we've already said we're planning for June or July. The other one, my understanding of the general plan for any coastal city is that it, within the general plan, has to be the local coastal plan. If I'm not mistaken, the local coastal plan takes precedent over that particular area?
The two documents have to be consistent. So that one does not take precedence over the other, but land that's within the coastal zone has to have a local coastal plan that covers uses there, mostly because they were restricted by state law as to what you can do. You then generally adapt or revise your land use element is the most likely one that needs to be revised in your general plan to ensure that it's consistent with local coastal plan and any restrictions imposed on it by the Coastal Commission.
So are you considering, sorry, I'm just going to follow up with that. So are you considering the local coastal plan part of our general plan?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've looked at the policies in both. There are policies that address the circulation issues, the widening of the highway in the coastal plan as well as in the general plan.
It's just that we always talk about them so differently, even though we know they intersect. It's obviously. Okay. Council, questions, statements, otherwise? Councilmember O'Neill.
I was just going to make a motion. So adopt the resolution next in order. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Pacifica adopting the City of Pacifica 2014-2019 Capital Improvement Program.
Councilmember Stone.
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay. Please vote. And that passes 4-1. Okay, so item number 8. This is another public hearing confirming the annual report for the Pacifica Hotel Business Improvement District, approving the program of expenditures and assessing the levy for fiscal year 2014-15 at the same rates levied in fiscal year 2014 without change. Staff report.
Honorable Mayor and council members, at the May 27th City Council meeting, a resolution of intention to continue the BID program and levy the annual assessments for fiscal year 2014-15 at the same rate as levied in fiscal year 2013-14 without change was passed by a 4-0 vote. The public hearing date was set for the council meeting of June 9th, 2014. Written and oral protests to the levy of the annual assessments may be made at the public hearing in the form and manner prescribed in sections 36625 and 36626 of the California Streets and Highway Code up until the close of the public hearing. As of today, the city clerk's office has not received any written or oral protest.
Okay. Any questions from council? Okay. I'm going to, Councilmember O'Neill?
I have a question for the city attorney. I've always seen, the words adopting, receiving, or whatever. What do we mean by the City of Pacifica confirming? What does that mean?
The reason we use the word confirming in this resolution is you technically received and approved the annual report when you adopted your notice of intent to levy. This is just confirming the approval of the report and actually doing the levy. But it's an extra step that's added by the Streets and Highways Code for this process.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to open the public hearing. I have one card on this item. Therese Dyer. Anyone else? Please turn your card in. This is item number 8.
I just want some clarification on this. Does this have anything to do with the TOT tax? Doesn't at all? Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have no other cards on this item. Your card is for oral. Okay. I I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back. The Business Improvement District is what we're talking about, and the funds related to the Business Improvement District, just for clarification, are assessed on the hotel room at $1 per night, or per, yes, okay. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And so I just one of the things, I see Marty Searles here from the BID and some members of the chamber and Courtney Conlon that help administer the funds there. I just wanted to say I think you guys are doing a really good job with the funds. And you know, the new programs that you're doing, reaching out to the public. When I was first on the chamber board, what they were doing, the funds weren't as dynamic as what you're doing now, and I'm glad that's evolved. And it looks like everything's in order with this. It seems pretty standard. And so just keep up the good work. You know, everything you're doing, bringing in travel writers and getting other people around the area and the world, for that matter, to learn about our city is really a huge service to your membership and to the city in general. So thank you. And I'll make a motion if people are ready.
Council? Okay.
You guys are ready? I'll move that we adopt the resolution confirming the annual report of the Pacifica Hotel Business Improvement District Advisory Board and continuing the assessment levied in 2013-14 without change in fiscal year 2014-15.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Second.
Did you have something else? I just want to echo what Councilmember Stone has said, and thank you for all the efforts in terms of marketing the city. It's been noticeably different and very concerted, so I really appreciate that. Okay, please vote. And that passes 5-0. Okay, that brings us to council communications. Seems late for council communications.
It is late.
Okay, Councilmember Degree.
The Economic Development Committee meets tomorrow night at the police station at 6, right? And one of the things we're working on is in Pacifica, so those more ideas are great. The VFW and the American Legion is sponsoring a welcome home to all our troops this Saturday at the Surf Spot, and it's at noon time, and I'm sure it was in the newspaper this week, and I believe it's next. And they're also collecting items, so you can find out what type of items. And if you know anybody who's a military person, please invite them and their families. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Lateness tends to make us less talkative. Councilmember Stone.
Sure, I'll just stick to my committee report because of the time, and I know we have other items, but we did have the ambulance JPA meeting, and we just approved the budget. Everything was in order. They're improving the system a lot. But I still, for the future, I will be looking at the service of Pacifica and the way that the ambulance rotates here, because it came to our attention that when somebody gets a call, like say on the Half Moon Bay coast, and the ambulance will transport somebody from Half Moon Bay to, say, Stanford. Our ambulance will cover the coast side, but then nobody comes and covers Pacifica, and that concerns me. So I'm looking to figure out just kind of more about how and why that is, but it's something that came up on my radar, and I want to report it back to council because you may hear more about it, and I want to just plant a seed for the future.
Great. Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem?
I attended the beautification committee with Mayor Nyhart. It was very substantial. We talked about some of the projects we'd like to address this summer, and we also talked about our new idea about having a mayor's beautification project where it's all about enhancing the landscaping in front of your house and having getting the public involved. And so we're really looking forward to that and starting to form a subcommittee to get that going, and we're looking forward to doing that coming this summer and fall. I also attended an AAUW meeting yesterday where Jackie Spear was supposed to come and speak, but unfortunately she had family emergency, so her press secretary came and spoke about trafficking in the area and a variety of other issues that are very important. So I found that very useful. And also we had our interviews for open space, and that's about it.
Later. Councilmember O'Neill?
Pretty much, there was a ghost up at the castle. I was Mr. McCloskey. And then I attended the library JPA meeting this morning, and we passed the annual budget for the libraries. And that's all, folks.
Well, I'm just, in the interest of time, going to focus on two things. One, because there were a whole bunch of events over the last 2 weeks, it's been kind of mind-boggling. But I will tomorrow night be meeting with Supervisor Horsley and some members from the Behavioral Health Department for the county. John Mueller from Half Moon Bay will be joining us, and our chief of police, and we're going to be talking about these issues with what's been going on in terms of mental health needs and mental health needs on the coast and how to address those needs. And I'm bringing forward a couple of things. One is a set of training DVDs that I do now have in my possession that have been used in another city for exactly these purposes in Orange. And I will also be asking for a stakeholders meeting so that we bring in some of the resources, because one of the things that we've discovered is how many services are available over the hills that aren't available here. And I'm lobbying, we will get to that, for some additional resources here in this city particularly, but I know Mayor Mueller from Half Moon Bay will also be lobbying in very much the same way. So we'll be tomorrow night meeting on that particular issue. It's not an open meeting, we're just doing a kind of lobbying of the supervisor. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that next council meeting, Mayor Pro Tem will be in this seat because I will be at a national conference that I am part of the Institute of Excellence for Psychopharmacology and Psychiatric and as a nurse practitioner. So I'll be out east for that, and that's kind of one of those pre-planned things that we've known for a while. Anything else from council? Okay, that's the end of council communications. We'll do oral communications. I have 3 cards. I have Roger Medler, Tree Steyer, and Courtney Conlon.
Hi, you know who I am anyway. This has to do with the police report, a restraining order, and a conspiracy. This is information to the public for what transpired and my constitutional rights. A restraining order was ordered against me, not by the threats that I made, but by the party that ordered them against me for speaking out at the city council. They're trying to take my freedom of speech away from me. They tried it at mediation. They tried it from a letter from the attorney. And now they're trying it with a restraining order. It has nothing to do with, the restraining order has nothing to do with threats. It has to do with shutting me up. I have no criminal record. I have a collection. Yet my collection of guns were confiscated and ordered to be sold or stored within 24 hours within the court date for 3 years, and to stay away from the party in question for 1,000 yards and his family. The CEO Chamber of Commerce lied on the stand because I simply asked her about one of the board members. I never did get the answer. Now I'm to stay away from the Chamber of Commerce also. City Councilor Irving took my comments out of contact when I was asking her to help, and she testified against me in court. So you thought I was going to be alone, right, Irving? So, Marianne Neihart, you added to the fire by the police report by stating that you saw guns in my living room when you came over in 2009, and that is obviously a lie because I've never had guns, a gun rack in my garage or in my studio. I don't know why you said that. That's ridiculous. You have done nothing to help me, And so the Jerry Hill's office is one of the contact places I contacted for help. I presented this letter from Jerry Hill to Karen Irving, and she gave it to Lori Tinfold. This whole conspiracy, let me repeat that, conspiracy was recorded without my permission. I was never read my rights or arrested, but I had to turn over my guns and stay 1,000 yards away from the person in question, apparently for no reason. I have done nothing to you. I've only sat in my home and asked you to leave me alone for 30 years, and you've done nothing for me. 40,000 people in Pacifica, the only person that helped me was Teresa Dreyer. You people should be ashamed of yourself. You should step down and let Teresa take your place. Now the police report is sent to the DA, to Steve Wagstaff, claiming that I am a terrorist. I'm a terrorist now for sitting in my home asking you to stop bothering me. Well, now I'm a terrorist. Can you believe that? So I was in court, and they would not let Teresa Dyer testify in court. So I am bothering nobody. Karen, you turned me in to look like a criminal. I'm not a criminal. I have neither threatened or bothered nobody. What are you going to do, burn my house down? Oh, you've tried that already. Hit me with a vehicle? That's already tried that.
I'm sorry, you're done. Therese Dyer, followed by Courtney Conlon, and that's it.
Good evening, City Council. After appearing in court with Roger and listening to the testimony of Karen Irvin and the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, I was appalled that the City Council, with the lack of knowledge of the city's codes, ordinances, and contracts, like the state, from the state, that she would subject herself to a potential lawsuit. In the Pacifica Directory on page 186 and 187, it specifically states that establishments need as for a license or permits. I think it would be a good idea to have all the businesses list their license number so the people know which ones are legit and which ones aren't. I can't believe that Lori Chinfo would believe any hearsay, especially when you all have copies of the violations and lack of certificate of occupancy. And for Marianne Nellhart, with 40 years of the mental health department working with veterans at the VA, I have my doubts as to your credibility. And as she didn't say the problem in 2009, you didn't solve the problem in 2009. What right have you to go to someone's house and look at their furnishings? Don't ever come to my house. I don't have any guns, but I don't want you looking what's on my walls, I'll tell you that. And the police report that was stated in the police report, which I have a copy of. Now, you're welcome to send this to Steve Wagstaff, and you tell him from the Teresa Dyer said hi, because I know him. And if you can make a police report like this for a threat, then I want to know why he didn't investigate a threat against me, okay? And other police reports that were expunged. Now, nobody said it better than Mr. Undall in the Tribune last week when he said that the Chamber of Commerce was nothing but a private club. Therefore, I don't want any funds to go to a private club. They are not a nonprofit, although she lied and said they were in court. But in the readings here of the minutes, she says we're profit making. Read the transcript.
And Courtney Conlon.
Well, I guess it's all about timing. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Courtney Conlon, and I am the CEO of the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce. And I'm up here tonight to just talk about one of our wonderful, well-attended community events we just had at Nick's Restaurant. And I just want to thank all of you on council and those on senior staff that came to this well-attended event. We had over 200 people that attended, and I want to really thank Nick's Restaurant and especially especially Chuck and Cindy and their staff, for just making it so seamless in the back end, because there's a lot that happens behind the scenes. This is an opportunity for us to showcase our restaurants in Pacifica, and I want to specifically just make mention for them taking time out of their busy schedules, because they came with all their prepping to give samples for 250, 300 people, and then they go back and have their restaurants open for dinner that night. It's amazing. Guerrero's Taqueria, Colombo's Deli, Tam's Cuisine, Mazzetti's Bakery, Oceana Market Deli, Ash's Valimar Station, Gorilla Barbecue, Grape in the Fog, Pacific Java, Rock and Rob's, Moonraker Restaurant, Nick's Seashore, the Surf Spot, the Beach Monkey Cafe, and the Sun Valley Fine Foods. They just did a great job in putting this together as participating restaurants. I also want to thank our sponsors, because without our sponsors, these type of events are very, very important for helping the Chamber to continue the work that we do, being a membership-driven organization and providing 21st century products and services to help our Chamber members' businesses grow and flourish. And also it helps us to promote the community, which when we promote the community of Pacifica, every business, everyone benefits in every way. And I thank you for your comments earlier about how you definitely appreciate and recognize our efforts, because we do a lot behind the scenes. And I just want to also thank Chris Porter, who chaired this event, and she did a great job, and then also to Cheryl Yos, and my staff for taking care of the registration. And so I just want to also just go right into my presentation of 2 weeks ago, when I talked about what the Chamber wants to do to help the city, especially being in the state that you're in. We are definitely going to be rolling out the top off your tank in Pacifica, because we are in this all together, and we want to help the city of Pacifica collect at least the highest revenue generator, which is gas. We can control the people getting their gas in Pacifica, and we're going to be proud to roll out that campaign. So keep posted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Clifford.
I did, in fact, have orals written on my card.
It moved over.
Okay. What I wanted to talk about was the process that happened last week in terms of you had your department heads come up and do their individual reports. Then at the end, council got to ask questions of the department heads if they felt like they needed to have questions. I really had questions for the fire chief, and there wasn't any opportunity for the public to ask questions, and I'm hoping that you will include that in your process going forward. There was a place for us to comment after everything was done, but there wasn't a place during that question period when the public could question. So if you could alter your process to accommodate that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. So, do we plow ahead? We're okay? All right. With that, we will move to item number 9, which is the budget information for fiscal year 2014-2015.
Does staff need a minute to get ready? Okay, can we take a 2-minute break? And
We can take a 2-minute
Stretch
break.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I was looking at y'all. I figured somebody would ask. Lord.